Hey guys, taking a look at some of those review questions for the test you guys have coming up tomorrow. Looking specifically at number 4. I'm going to do it on my notebook paper here, simply because we're going to use the graphing calculator, and that's just a lot easier to show you here. So want to find all the zeros of this. Remember we talked about, since it's a cubic, I know it's got 3 zeros. Now some of them might be duplicates, some of them might be imaginary, but I know I'm looking for 3 answers here. All right. So the first thing I want to do is look at my possibilities, see if there are any rational roots here. So that's that P over Q list. So P is factors of this constant here. So factors of, and again, I'm looking at this as a -2. Factors of -2 are positive and -1 and positive -2. Good news is Q is 1. So the only factors of 1 are positive and -1. And so really my P over Q list is just exactly the same as my P list. All right. So I know right now that if there are rational roots, they're right here in this list. And it might be 3 out of these 4, or it might only be one of them. But I know that this is my list of possibilities here. So now I'm going to graph this thing just to give me a little bit better chance here at seeing what that is. So here is, I've got that typed in already. And again, I'm going to do zoom. I'm going to do zoom standard here. All right, so Z6. That'll take me from -10 to +10. All right, so it does look like there are, 3 real roots here. So I'm not dealing with any imaginary roots. But now the one thing I noticed is I've got one way out here. It looks like it's at -5 or -6. And that's not in my list here. So that tells me this is probably an irrational root. So, I'm going to focus on these. So which of those does it look like? And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. It looks to me like +1 might be one of my choices there. All right. So let's check that out. So remember, I go to second, calculate, and I want to calculate the value. So I typed in number 1 there to get to value, and I want to know where is this thing when x equals 1, and it is at 0. Okay. So 1 is one of my roots. Now, so here's what I notice. Since this is a cubic and I have one of the roots, I can use synthetic division to get this down to a quadratic, and then I can find the others from there. So I'm going to do synthetic division. 1, 5, -4, -2. And I'm going to do synthetic division by 1. Again, I know this better give me a remainder of 0. All right, the graph tells me that it should. So again, we add and then multiply, add and multiply, add and multiply and add. So yeah, it did give me that remainder of 0. And what I've got left is x squared plus 6x plus 2. And this is just kind of what I guessed from the graph. All right, I'm not going to be able to factor this. There are no factors of 2 that add up to 6. So I'm going to have to go the quadratic formula, which tells me my other 2 roots are probably irrational. So I'm going to do the quadratic formula here. A is 1, B is 6, and C is 2. So let's start plugging that into the quadratic formula. So the opposite of B, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, and that whole thing divided by 2 times a. Order of operations, well, I've got to do the stuff under the radical sign first. So I'm going to multiply here. Multiplication comes before subtraction. So that gives me -6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 8. And that whole thing is divided by 2. And now 36 minus 8 is 28. So I get -6 plus or minus the square root of 28 over 2. And that's a good answer. That's a decent answer, but I'd like to simplify this. So this is 7 times 4. Again, I'm looking for factors of 28 that are perfect squares, and 4 is a factor, or 4 is a factor of 28. And so this is really the square root of 7 times 4, or the square root of 7 times the square root of 4, or 2 times the square root of 7. So I can simplify this a little bit more. -6 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 7 over 2. If you gave me that answer, I'd be fine with it. Okay. Now that's a good answer. A better answer, the best answer here, is to realize that all three terms here are divisible by 3, or I'm sorry, divisible by 2. So if I divide all those by 2, I get -3 plus or minus 1 times the square root of 7. Or I just write that the square root of 7. I could put that over 1, but I really don't need to. There's my other two roots. -3 plus the square root of 7 and -3 minus the square root of 7. And I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not going to round or estimate what that is. So my three roots here are 1. We got that from the graph. And then -3 plus the square root of 7 and -3 minus the square root of 7. Okay, so just real quick recap here. To find the roots, you look at your rational roots. All right, you look at your P over Q list. Look at the graph to figure out which one it is. And again, if this is a cubic, if you can find one root, that gets it down to a quadratic. And then once we've got a quadratic, then we can find those other two roots using either factoring if it's possible, or if it's not possible, go into the quadratic formula. All right. Let me know if you have any other questions. I know we got a Google Meet coming up, I believe tomorrow. All right. So if you have any other questions before you, I'm just checking my calendar right now. If you have any other questions before that Google Meet, let me know. But yeah, I got a Google Meet at 11 o'clock tomorrow. So really nothing planned, just to maybe take some of your questions, just check in with you guys is really all I got planned for that Google Meet. So I hope to see you tomorrow, but let me know if you have any other questions on this review. Take care.